welcome to Paris Mountain State Park in Greenville, South Carolina. I'm Ranger Kathy Taylor. Welcome also to part 2 of our Forest Ecology on-site program. In part 1, we started our journey around Lake Placid, and as forest ecologists, we started figuring out what's so fantastic about forests. We went to stations 1, 2, 3, and 4. In part 2, we'll continue our journey at stations 5, 6, and 7, and that will prepare us for part 3, where we'll do our 1 square meter investigation of the forest. So let's get started with part 2. You will need your forest ecology field study sheet today. Where it says ecologist, that's you, so you can write your name there. We'll be using this sheet as we walk around Lake Placid, figuring out what's so fantastic about forests. After we practice being forest ecologists as we walk around the lake, we'll use the other side of the sheet, or page 2, to do a 1 square meter investigation of the forest. Well, scientists, we made it to station 5, and this is where we're going to demonstrate just how fantastic the forest is. Did you know that the forest will soak up water like a sponge when it rains, slowly releasing it? So even when we haven't had rain for a while, and some other places may have dried up, we always have water here at the lake and in Mountain Creek. Also, on top of that, the forest holds on to pollution. The plants hold on to pollution in the forest. And so when it rains and the water goes into the lake, the bad stuff stays out for the most part, and the good stuff goes in, the healthy water. Thirdly, forests will prevent erosion. You can imagine a lot of mud going into a place. You've probably seen that after a rain. Where it gets to be a muddy mess. Well, we're going to demonstrate what the forest does with 2 buckets of water from the lake. I'm going to place 1 bucket where there are not many plants. And I'm going to place another bucket where there are lots of plants. Let's see, where could we go? Maybe, oh, over here there's lots of plants. I want it to be about equal with the other bucket. I'll even make this one very slightly closer. So we're going to tip over the buckets and see if the water gets to the lake. Do you think the water will get to the lake for both buckets, or just one of the buckets? So let's first tip over the water at the spot that has lots of plants. There it goes. Let's see if the water gets to the lake. Where did it go? Do you see any water? Well, is there a little bit down there? No? Okay, it stopped pretty fast with this topsoil layer and the leaves and the live plants. Okay, the water did not get to the lake. Now, let's tip over the bucket that doesn't have any plants in the way. Do you think the water will get to the lake? Ready? Make your prediction. Oh, it's going so fast. Okay, we gotta get there before it does. See if the water gets to the lake. Well, it's puddling a little bit there, but no, indeed. Would you say it got to the lake? Oh, yes. Well, let's look at our field sheet. For station 5, it says, from the list below, circle 3 ways a forest protects water quality when it rains. Now you have 5 choices, and you're supposed to circle 3. Those 3 ways we said that the forest protects the water. So first one, it says soaks up water. Does the forest do that? Second one says soaks clothing. Does that protect the water? Third one says filters out pollution. What do you think? Fourth one says prevents erosion, the washing away of soil. And fifth says makes pizza. Does that help water quality? Well, it's circle the three that are ways that a forest protects water quality when it rains. Did you know that life on Earth is possible because of the layer of topsoil that is here, and that's the layer where plants can grow, including plants that we eat, the fruits and vegetables that we depend on, and that other parts of the food chain depend on. And you probably know some other important parts of plants in terms of the rest of the world. How about oxygen that the plants provide? So we are glad to have forests here, and people knew that over 100 years ago when this land was set aside to protect the water supply. Talk about fantastic forests. Do you see the gold ball up in the oak tree? That was made partly by a wasp and partly by the oak tree. The female wasp, it's a little kind of wasp, she laid an egg on the oak tree. And when the egg hatched, something about it irritated the plant. And so it grew a bump or a ball, sort of like when a mosquito bites your skin and it makes a bump. But in this case, the baby wasp grew up inside that ball, dangling from this oak tree. And it ate the plant fibers inside. Now, when the wasp was old enough to fly out with wings, it didn't have the right kind of mouth to do that. So while it was still a larva, it pushed through almost to the outside world. And that way, when it was an adult, it could push on through. Now, is that amazing or what? Here at the Curvy Bridge, this is Station 6. And we're going to be looking at the relationships between biotic and abiotic factors. Specifically, I want to show you a pine tree that was brought down by abiotic factors during an ice storm many years ago, soon after the bridge was completed, in fact. So here you see one side of the pine tree on one side of the bridge. And let's get past this mountain laurel that's been growing since. And we have the other part of the pine tree. So how did abiotic factors bring down this pine tree? We know that during an ice storm, we have ice, which is a form of water, right? That's all abiotic. And we have the cold temperatures, which caused the ice to form. And then we have the biotic trees. Pine trees do topple when you have wind and ice that hangs heavy on the pine needles. So that's what happened. Looking more closely at the forest floor, I see branches. Oh, that one has thorns. Branches, leaves. There's a lot of this in a forest, isn't there? So are the leaves and branches going to stay here forever and ever? No, we know they're not going to do that. What will they become? They'll be recycled into soil. And how does that happen? Well, I've heard it happens because of the FBI. Have you heard that? I'm not talking about the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm talking about some decomposers here in the forest that do that job of breaking down the forest into soil. So what are the parts that make up the FBI? So what does F stand for in FBI? You see a mushroom and the underground part of a mushroom, some various kinds of fungus. So fungus is biotic, and depending on the kind of fungus, it feeds on living or dead plants or animals. So we have fungus breaking down the leaves and the branches. I mean, sometimes people get a fungus on them. Have you heard of toenail fungus? So, sorry about that. So, what about B? What could that stand for? Got some colorful pictures here that were taken with a microscope. So what could B stand for? That something that is too small to see with the normal eye. We're talking about bacteria. So you might think of bacteria as a bad thing, and sometimes it is. But there's also good bacteria. There's good bacteria in your stomach that helps break down food. And the bacteria in the forest breaks down the parts of the forest to become soil. So what about I? We have here a snail, a worm, a millipede, and an insect. These are examples of invertebrates. So there are many invertebrates in the forest floor that break down what's there to become soil. Let's look for some. Once we start looking, we'll see evidence of animals all around us. So take this hickory branch. First of all, it's no longer attached to a tree, but is it biotic? Yes, leaves, branches, anything that was ever part of something living is biotic. If we look at the end of it, we can see that a twig girdler beetle has been at work on it. When this branch was still high in a hickory tree, she would have made little grooves in it and laid eggs in the branch. They will still be there right now. And she would then chew around the edges of the branch. As you can kind of see, she doesn't chew all the way to the center. So the branch stays on the tree till the next windstorm, and the branch eventually falls to the forest floor. Now those babies, or the eggs inside the branch, will stay there through the winter and into the new year, and next summer they will emerge as twig girdler beetles. So we know the forest floor is an amazing nursery. On our field sheet for Station 6, it says write an F, B, or I to identify the following. For the first one, mushroom, is that a fungus, a bacteria, or an invertebrate? Write down the letter that goes with that. Next, we have a microscopic single-celled organism. Would that be fungus, bacteria, or invertebrate? Write down the letter that goes with that. And finally, for beetle, is it fungus, bacteria, or invertebrate? Write down the letter that goes with that. Okay, we're done. Let's go to Station 7. There's a lot going on here at Station 7. I'm talking about energy all around us. Can you feel it wherever you are? Actually, I don't feel it. What provides energy for the whole world? And some living things convert it into food. But first of all, what provides energy? The sun. So can we sit outside for a while and feel full? No. What living things get energy from the sun and convert it into food? Plants. Plants convert the sun's energy into food through a process you might know of called photosynthesis. Can you say that 3 times? Photosynthesis. The plants have the help of green chloroplasts in their leaves that convert the sun's energy into starches and sugars. Wow. So because plants can produce their own food from the sun's energy, we call them producers. Plants produce their own food. Do animals produce, like make their own food? No. Animals consume plants, so in a sense they're consuming that energy, that food from the plants. So when they eat plants, they are consuming. Animals are consumers. Okay, so we have a plant, and we have a chipmunk, and we have a snake. None of them are real, by the way. So if we're going to make a food chain, and I don't mean a fast food restaurant, I'm talking about a food chain in the forest, we'd have to start with what? The sun. We have the sun out here today. Every day, but it's obvious today. And we have a plant, and what might come along and eat a plant? Well, how about a chipmunk? So the chipmunk will come along and consume the plant, or whatever part it likes. If it's an oak tree, it would consume nuts, right? And what animal might come along and eat a chipmunk? Well, how about a snake? The snakes are amazing at this. Their mouth and their jaws are so well made to swallow a chipmunk whole and digest it as its food. So out of these, which are the producers? Well, the plants, right? And which are the consumers? The chipmunk and the snake. So we might try to find some of these food chains when we get to our square meter area in just a little bit. On your field sheet for Station 7, it says, producers get energy from the blank. What do plants get their energy from? To produce their food through a process called photosynthesis. Consumers eat producers and other consumers to get energy. So name a producer, take your pick, and name a consumer. All right. Right by Station 7, we have one of the many trees that were chewed by the beavers. Beavers do eat plants, particularly aquatic plants, but they also use the plants, in this case trees, to make their shelter, as in their lodge that they make. And they build dams that change the habitat to suit them.